My wife ruined every family event and celebration because she hated childish traditions. Then she disappeared without a trace. 1 month later, I got a call that changed everything. I, 32 am, never thought I'd be in this situation, but here I am, questioning everything about my marriage. My wife Sharon, 30F, and I have been married for 3 years now. We met at a friend's barbecue back in 2018, and I still remember how she caught my eye. She was wearing a bright yellow sundress, laughing at something my buddy Mike had said. Her laugh was infectious, and I found myself drawn to her immediately. We hit it off that day, talking for hours about everything from our favorite books to our dream travel destinations. Sharon was witty, intelligent, and had this way of seeing the world that was both cynical and oddly charming. She worked as a marketing executive for a big tech company, and her stories about corporate life always had me in stitches. After dating for a year, we got engaged during a weekend trip to the mountains. It wasn't a grand, elaborate proposal, just the two of us, a bottle of wine, and a stunning sunset. Sharon had always said she didn't care for big gestures, so it felt perfect. We tied the knot 6 months later in a small ceremony with just our closest friends and family. The first couple of years of our marriage were great. We traveled, we worked hard at our careers, and we enjoyed our time together. Sharon was always a bit of a homebody, preferring quiet nights into big social gatherings, but I never saw it as an issue. I have a large, close-knit family, and while Sharon didn't always join me for family events, she was always polite and pleasant when she did. Looking back, I can see now that there were small signs of trouble, but at the time, I brushed them off. Like the time my sister Mary, 28F, had her college graduation party. Sharon came, but spent most of the time on her phone, barely engaging with anyone. When I asked her about it later, she just said she found the whole thing juvenile and didn't see the point in celebrating something as expected as finishing college. But it wasn't until last Christmas that things really started to unravel. My family has always been big on holiday traditions. Every year, we gather at my parents' house on Christmas Eve. My mom Sandra, 58F, goes all out. She decorates every inch of the house, cooks enough food to feed an army, and insists on everyone wearing matching pajamas for our Christmas morning photo. I've always loved these traditions. They remind me of my childhood, of the warmth and love that filled our home during the holidays. I was excited to share this with Sharon, especially since this was the first Christmas she'd be spending with my family. In previous years, she'd always had work commitments or family obligations of her own. When we arrived at my parents' house, everything seemed fine at first. My mom hugged Sharon, my dad Dave, 60M, cracked his usual dad jokes, and Mary was chatting with Sharon about work. The house smelled amazing, a mix of pine from the Christmas tree, cinnamon from mom's famous cookies, and the savory aroma of the turkey in the oven. As we sat down for dinner, my mom brought out her famous turkey. She always makes way too much food, but that's part of the charm. There were mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, cranberry sauce, stuffing, the works. Mom started serving everyone, as she always does. When she got to Sharon, she asked, "How much would you like, dear?" Suddenly, Sharon's whole demeanor changed. She glared at my mom and snapped, "I can serve myself, thank you very much. I'm not a child." The room went silent. My mom looked shocked, her hand still holding the serving spoon mid-air. I felt my face getting hot with embarrassment. I tried to smooth things over, saying, "Mom's just trying to be hospitable, Sharon. It's no big deal." But Sharon wasn't having it. She pushed her chair back with a screech and stormed out of the dining room. I followed her to the guest room, where she was furiously packing her bag. "What's going on?" I asked, completely bewildered. We'd talked about this dinner for weeks. Sharon had even asked my mom for her stuffing recipe, saying she wanted to try making it herself sometime. Sharon turned to me, her eyes blazing. "Your family is trying to infantilize me. First, your mom wants to serve my food like I'm 5 years old, and now this." She gestured to the Christmas stocking on the bed with her name on it. I was confused. The stocking? My mom makes one for everyone in the family. It's just a tradition. She even made one for Mike when he came for Christmas that one year in college. "Well, it's a stupid tradition," Sharon spat. "I'm a grown woman, not some kid waiting for Santa. We're leaving. Now." I tried to reason with her, reminding her of how much this meant to my family, how my mom had been looking forward to having her there. I even mentioned how Sharon's own mom had called my mom to share some of Sharon's favorite Christmas recipes. But Sharon was adamant. In the end, we left, my family looking on in confusion and hurt. The drive home was tense and silent, the car filled with the scent of peppermint from the candy canes my mom had pressed into our hands as we left. Over the next few months, things were strained between us. Sharon refused to talk about what happened at Christmas, and any mention of my family would set her off. I tried to understand where she was coming from, but it was difficult. I found myself making excuses to my family for why Sharon couldn't make it to Sunday dinners or why she had to work late when we were supposed to babysit my nephew. I started to notice other things too. Like how Sharon would roll her eyes when our neighbors put up birthday banners for their kids, or how she'd scoff at couples taking engagement photos in the park near our apartment. Once, when we were out for coffee and saw a proposal happening at a nearby table, Sharon muttered, "How embarrassing. They're making a spectacle of themselves." I tried to talk to her about it, to understand why she seemed so bitter about these moments of joy in other people's lives. But every time I brought it up, she'd accuse me of not supporting her or of being obsessed with trivial sentimentality. Fast forward to last week. It was my birthday, and despite everything, I was looking forward to a quiet celebration. In previous years, Sharon had always made my birthday special in her own way. She wasn't one for big parties, but she'd usually plan a nice dinner or surprise me with tickets to a show I wanted to see. This year, Sharon suggested we have a small party at our place. I was hesitant, given how things had been, but I agreed, hoping it might help smooth things over. I invited a few close friends and my sister Mary, keeping it low-key as I knew that's what Sharon preferred. The party started well enough. A few of our friends came over, we had some drinks, and the atmosphere was relaxed. I was starting to think that maybe things were looking up. Then, my sister Mary showed up with a gift and a small cake. As soon as Mary walked in, I could see Sharon tense up. But things really went south when Mary suggested we sing happy birthday and cut the cake. Before I could even respond, Sharon exploded. Are you kidding me? He's 32 years old. We're not going to sing some stupid song and pretend we're at a children's party. Everyone looked shocked. Mary's face fell, and our friends looked uncomfortable. I tried to defuse the situation, saying it wasn't a big deal, but Sharon was on a roll. This is exactly what I'm talking about, she yelled. Your family treats you like you're still 5 years old, and you just let them. It's embarrassing. She then turned to our friends and started ranting about how my family was trying to keep me as their little boy and how I needed to grow up. She brought up Christmas, twisting the story to make it sound like my mom had tried to spoon-feed her at dinner. She mocked the matching pajamas tradition, calling it creepy and cult-like. I was mortified. These were our friends, people we'd known for years. They'd been at our wedding, had celebrated birthdays and promotions with us. And now they were witnessing this meltdown over a birthday cake and a song. Eventually, everyone left, looking extremely uncomfortable. Mary was in tears, and I was left standing in our living room, feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. The cake sat untouched on the coffee table, the candles long since burned out. When I confronted Sharon about her behavior, she insisted she was doing it for my own good. She said my family was holding me back and that I needed to cut the cord. She argued that real adults don't need birthday parties or holiday traditions, that these were crutches for people who couldn't find meaning in their everyday lives. I'm at a loss. I love Sharon, but I also love my family, and I don't see anything wrong with our traditions. Is it really so bad to enjoy family traditions and celebrations? To find joy in marking special occasions with the people you care about? I don't know what to do. This isn't the woman I married, or at least, not the woman I thought I married. The Sharon I fell in love with was cynical, yes, but also kind and understanding. She used to laugh at my family's antics, even if she didn't always participate. Now, it feels like she's turned into someone who wants to strip all the joy out of life. I'm starting to wonder if I even know her at all. Was she always like this, and I just didn't see it? Or has something changed? I feel like I'm walking on eggshells in my own home, afraid to mention anything that might set her off. Any advice would be appreciated. I love Sharon, but I also love my family and the life we've built. I don't want to have to choose between them, but I'm afraid that's where this is heading. Update 1. It's been a couple of weeks since my last post, and I want to thank everyone for their advice and support. Your comments have given me a lot to think about, and I'm grateful for the outside perspective. Things have escalated since then. After the birthday fiasco, I tried to have a serious talk with Sharon. I explained how her behavior was affecting me and our relationships with friends and family. I told her about how Mary had called me in tears the day after the party, asking if she'd done something wrong. I even brought up how our friend Mike, who's known us both since college, had texted me asking if everything was okay at home. Sharon seemed to listen, and for a moment, I thought we were making progress. She admitted that she might have overreacted at the party and agreed to apologize to Mary and my parents. She even suggested we invite my family over for dinner as a peace offering. I was cautiously optimistic. However, things took a turn when my cousin Johnny, 34M, announced his engagement to his longtime girlfriend, Sarah, 31F. A bit of background, Johnny and I have always been close. We're only 2 years apart and grew up more like brothers than cousins. We went to the same college, were roommates for a while, and even worked at the same company for a few years before he moved to a different state for a job opportunity. Johnny and Sarah have been together since their sophomore year of college. I remember when Johnny first told me about her, he was so excited, saying he'd finally met a girl who could keep up with his terrible puns. Over the years, Sarah became like another cousin to me. She'd join us for family vacations, help out at our annual charity bake sale, and she even helped me pick out Sharon's engagement ring. So when Johnny called to invite us to their engagement party, I was thrilled. I thought it would be a good opportunity for Sharon to make amends with my family and maybe even enjoy herself at a celebration. When I told Sharon about the invitation, she seemed okay with it at first. She even helped me pick out a gift for the couple, a beautiful set of copper Moscow Mule mugs that Johnny had been eyeing for months. The day of the party arrived, and we made the 3-hour drive to Johnny's place. Everything seemed fine during the journey. Sharon was chatting about work and some new Netflix show she'd been watching. We even stopped at our favorite diner halfway through the trip, the one where we had our first real date after the barbecue where we met. As we shared a slice of their famous apple pie, I started to feel hopeful that we were turning a corner. When we arrived at Johnny's house, we were greeted warmly by my aunt and uncle. The place was beautifully decorated with fairy lights and flowers, and there was a buzz of excitement in the air. Johnny and Sarah were busy mingling with guests, but they came over to say hello as soon as they spotted us. Johnny gave me a big bear hug, the kind we'd been sharing since we were kids. He then introduced Sarah to Sharon, even though they'd met briefly at our wedding. That's when things started to go downhill. Sarah, being friendly and excited, hugged Sharon and said, "I'm so glad to finally meet you properly. Johnny's told me so much about your and Alex's love story. It's so sweet how you met at a barbecue." Sharon stiffened and pulled away from the hug. "Our love story?" she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "What are we, characters in a rom-com?" Johnny and Sarah looked taken aback. I quickly tried to smooth things over, saying, "Sharon's just joking. We're really happy for you both." But Sharon wasn't done. She turned to Johnny and said, "So, you're really doing this whole marriage thing, huh? Don't you think it's a bit outdated? I mean, you're in your 30s. Shouldn't you be focusing on your career instead of playing house?" The atmosphere instantly became tense. Johnny's smile faltered, and Sarah looked hurt. I was mortified. Before anyone could respond, Sharon continued, "And an engagement party? Really? It's just an excuse for people to give you gifts and attention. It's so childish. I grabbed Sharon's arm and excused us, practically dragging her to a quiet corner of the house. What are you doing? I hissed. This is Johnny and Sarah's special day. Why are you trying to ruin it? Sharon's eyes flashed with anger. I'm just being honest, she snapped. Someone needs to tell them how ridiculous this all is. They're acting like teenagers, and everyone's just going along with it. I was at a loss for words. This wasn't just about my immediate family anymore, she was insulting my cousin and his fiancée at their own engagement party. Johnny, who'd been more like a brother to me. Sarah, who'd helped me pick out Sharon's ring. I told Sharon that if she couldn't be civil, we should leave. To my surprise, she agreed. But as we were saying our goodbyes, she couldn't resist one last jab. Loud enough for several guests to hear, she said, "Good luck with the wedding planning. Hope you enjoy wasting money on a pointless ceremony and overpriced rings." The drive home was excruciating. Sharon ranted the entire time about how immature Johnny and Sarah were, how marriage was an outdated institution, and how everyone at the party was living in a fantasy world. She even brought up our own wedding, saying she only went through with it because she thought it was what I wanted. When we got home, I finally lost my cool. I told Sharon that her behavior was unacceptable and that she owed Johnny, Sarah, and pretty much everyone at the party an apology. I brought up how she'd been acting for months now, how she'd pushed away my family and our friends. I asked her what had changed, why she suddenly seemed to hate everything and everyone I cared about. Sharon's response shocked me. She said she'd always felt this way, but had been playing along for my sake. She said she was tired of pretending, of going to childish parties and celebrating meaningless milestones. She accused me of being stuck in the past, of refusing to grow up and face the real world. We've barely spoken since then. Sharon's sleeping in the guest room, and I'm at a loss. I've received several messages from family members asking what's going on with Sharon. Johnny called, sounding hurt and confused, asking if Sharon was okay and if there was anything he could do to help. I love Sharon, but I don't recognize the person she's become. Or maybe this is who she always was, and I just didn't see it. I'm starting to wonder if our relationship has any future if this is how she views family, traditions, and celebrations, all the things that, to me, make life worth living. I'm not sure what my next move should be. Part of me wants to try and work things out, to understand where all this bitterness is coming from. But another part is wondering if it's time to consider more drastic measures. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Update 2. I want to start by thanking everyone for their support and advice. Your comments have given me a lot to think about, and I'm grateful for the perspective you've all provided. Things have gotten more complicated since my last update. After the engagement party disaster, I decided to take some time to really think about our relationship and Sharon's behavior. I realized that this wasn't just about differing views on traditions or celebrations, there was something deeper going on. I tried to talk to Sharon again, hoping to understand where all this was coming from. At first, she was resistant, but after some prodding, she finally opened up. It turns out, her issues with family traditions and celebrations stem from her own childhood experiences. Sharon revealed that her parents were extremely controlling when she was growing up. Every holiday, birthday, or special occasion was rigidly structured according to her parents' expectations. She wasn't allowed to have her own opinions or preferences, everything had to be done their way. As she got older, these events became a source of anxiety and resentment for her. She told me about how her Sweet 16 party was a nightmare. Her mother had planned every detail, from the dress Sharon would wear to the music that would be played. When Sharon tried to suggest changes, her parents shut her down, saying she was being ungrateful. The party ended with Sharon locked in her room, crying, while guests awkwardly mingled downstairs. While I sympathize with what she went through, I told her that it doesn't justify her behavior towards my family or our friends. I explained that my family's traditions come from a place of love, not control, and that she was projecting her past experiences onto innocent situations. Sharon seemed to understand, and for a moment, I thought we were making progress. She agreed to try and be more open-minded about family events and to work on her reactions. I was cautiously optimistic. However, that optimism was short-lived. Last weekend, we were invited to a baby shower for my coworker, Tom, 29M, and his wife, Lisa, 28F. I was hesitant to go given recent events, but Sharon insisted she would be on her best behavior. At first, everything seemed fine. Sharon was quiet but polite, making small talk with the other guests. But then came time for the games, you know, the typical baby shower stuff like guessing the baby's birth date, decorating onesies, that sort of thing. As soon as the first game was announced, I saw Sharon's demeanor change. She rolled her eyes and muttered under her breath. I gave her hand a squeeze, silently pleading with her to keep it together. But when Lisa started opening gifts, Sharon couldn't hold back anymore. As Lisa unwrapped a set of adorable baby clothes, Sharon scoffed loudly. "Really?" she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "You're going to dress your kid in that cutesy crap? They're going to grow out of it in like a week. What a waste of money." The room went silent. Lisa looked like she was about to cry, and Tom was glaring at us. I quickly apologized and practically dragged Sharon out of there. In the car, I lost it. I told Sharon that her behavior was completely unacceptable and that she had embarrassed me for the last time. She fired back, saying that baby showers were just another excuse for people to be self-indulgent and that I was too weak to see how ridiculous it all was. When we got home, I told Sharon that I needed some space. I packed a bag and went to stay with my sister Mary for a few days. Sharon didn't even try to stop me. I've been at Mary's for 3 days now, and Sharon hasn't reached out once. I'm starting to realize that the woman I married is very different from the woman I'm seeing now. The Sharon I fell in love with was kind, understanding, and fun-loving. This new Sharon is bitter, judgmental, and seems to take pleasure in ruining other people's happiness. I'm at a crossroads. Part of me wants to fight for our marriage, to try and help Sharon work through her issues. But another part of me is wondering if it's too late, if the damage has already been done. I'm scheduled to go back home tomorrow, and I'm dreading it. I don't know what I'm going to say to Sharon or where we go from here. Any advice on how to approach this conversation would be greatly appreciated. Update 3. It's been a month since my last update, and a lot has happened. I want to thank everyone again for their support and advice. Your words have been a source of strength during this difficult time. After staying at Mary's for a few days, I returned home to have a serious conversation with Sharon. I was prepared for anything: arguments, tears, maybe even a breakthrough. What I wasn't prepared for was an empty house. When I arrived, I found a note on the kitchen counter. Sharon had left. The note was brief and cold, saying she needed time to find herself and that she couldn't be the person I wanted her to be. She had taken some clothes and personal items, but left everything else behind. I was in shock. Despite everything that had happened, I never expected her to just leave. I tried calling her, but her phone was off. I reached out to her friends and coworkers, but no one knew where she had gone. For the first week, I was a mess. I barely ate or slept, constantly checking my phone for any message from Sharon. My family and friends rallied around me, offering support and helping me keep it together. As the days turned into weeks, I started to gain some clarity. I realized that Sharon's behavior wasn't just about family traditions or celebrations, it was a fundamental incompatibility in our values and how we view the world. I've spent a lot of time reflecting on our relationship, and I've come to see that there were red flags I had ignored. Sharon had always been a bit cynical, but I had found it charming at first. I never realized how deep that cynicism ran, or how it would manifest in such destructive ways. Last week, I finally heard from Sharon. She called from an unknown number, saying she was staying with a friend in another state. She didn't apologize for leaving or for her behavior. Instead, she told me that she had been suffocating in our marriage and that she needed to break free from the expectations of family and society. I listened to her words, and for the first time, I didn't feel the need to argue or defend myself. I simply told her that I understood, and that perhaps it was for the best that we went our separate ways. After that call, I made a decision. I've contacted a lawyer and started the process of filing for divorce. It's not a decision I've made lightly, but I believe it's the right one. I deserve to be with someone who shares my values, who can find joy in life's simple pleasures and traditions, and who doesn't feel the need to tear others down to feel better about themselves. I'm not going to lie, it's been tough. There are moments when I miss the Sharon I thought I knew, the woman I fell in love with. But I'm also feeling a sense of relief. The constant tension, the walking on eggshells, the embarrassment and hurt, it's all lifting. My family has been incredibly supportive. Even Johnny and Sarah, despite the awful things Sharon said at their engagement party, have reached out to offer their support. It's reminded me of how important these connections are, and how much I value the traditions and celebrations that bring us together. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I'm facing it with a sense of cautious optimism. I'm focusing on healing, on rebuilding the relationships that were strained during my time with Sharon, and on rediscovering the things that bring me joy. Thank you all for being a part of this journey with me. Your advice and support have been invaluable. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's the importance of staying true to yourself and surrounding yourself with people who lift you up, not tear you down.